Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. I am so incredibly thrilled to have you here today because we're looking at a turning point, an event that fundamentally changed how we understand our modern, hyper-connected world. For years, right, AI was sold to us as the ultimate silver bullet. It was going to save civilization, revolutionize daily life, and magically streamline everything from your morning commute to critical hospital care. But today, we're taking a hard look at what actually happened behind closed doors in early 2026. And look, this isn't some science fiction movie plot. We're doing a deeply grounded dive into the classified warnings, the cascading breakdowns, and the exact moment our digital infrastructure literally started to collapse under its own weight. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. There was a massive and quite frankly terrifying disconnect between the public narrative and the classified reality. On the one hand, you had politicians and tech giants confidently telling us that an AI-driven society was this glorious, inevitable future. Everything was under control. But over in the real world, in early 2026, officials connected to the Department of Homeland Security were quietly panicking. They were getting these alarming reports from their top cybersecurity analysts. And these weren't just wild internet rumors, these were federal experts sounding the alarm that America's rapidly expanding AI infrastructure was becoming dangerously, almost impossibly unstable.
Section 1. The illusion of control, ignoring the warning signs.
You know, it's funny, well, not funny, but typical. Big systemic disasters almost never start with a giant explosion. They start as minor inconveniences, which makes them dangerously easy to brush off. Initially, all these reports just looked like isolated glitches. You had hospital scheduling systems suddenly locking up out of nowhere, airport coordination software giving pilots totally contradictory runway commands. You even had emergency dispatch algorithms randomly rerouting ambulances miles away from critical patients. To the general public, or even local IT folks, these were just annoying bugs. But the insiders, the people looking at the whole board, they knew these weren't random at all. They knew they were deeply connected.
Section 2. The architecture of disaster. A digital nervous system. To really grasp why everything started breaking down, we have to look at how we actually built these systems. We relied way too much on centralized machine learning, which made us incredibly vulnerable. In leaked briefings, federal analysts started throwing around this very specific, very scary phrase, a cross-sector destabilization event. Let's break that jargon down. This was literally the nightmare scenario they were secretly running drills for. It basically meant that if an AI malfunctioned in one place, it wouldn't be contained. Because we wired everything together, a single failure would cascade and trigger massive simultaneous crashes across entirely different industries. They used vague words so we wouldn't panic, but the reality was absolute chaos.
So, how could a localized glitch cause a nationwide meltdown? Well, look at these 5 specific sectors: transportation, healthcare, banking, logistics, and utilities. Over the years, these industries didn't just adopt AI, they basically surrendered to it. They became completely dependent on a tiny handful of centralized infrastructures. They were all essentially sharing the exact same digital brain. So if those core systems started behaving unpredictably, it wouldn't just delay a shipping container, it was going to hit the ERs, the power grid, and your bank account all at the exact same time.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how the Feds saw the dominoes falling in their simulations. Step 1. An AI system glitches and generates corrupted data. Step 2. Because everything is so heavily linked, that bad data is instantly swallowed and amplified by another system. Step 3. The error multiplies rapidly across transportation, healthcare, utilities, triggering a cross-sector cascading crash. Literally within hours, major cities could be brought to a standstill simply because interconnected machines were rapidly feeding bad data into each other.
Section 3. The February incident. Falling in the dark.
Okay, so all those classified warnings and tabletop exercises, they became incredibly, terrifyingly real on a freezing cold morning in February 2026. The speed of this was staggering. Early morning, it's just a few airports complaining about impossible runway assignments. Passengers thought it was just standard weather delays, but by midday, total shift. Emergency response centers across multiple states start failing, dispatch systems routing cops and ambulances to nowhere, traffic grid software totally freezing. Then by the afternoon, the banks get hit. Automated fraud detection suddenly goes haywire and locks thousands of perfectly legitimate transactions, paralyzing digital transfers. In a matter of hours, an airport glitch turned into a full-blown national emergency.
With banking apps locked and rumors spreading like wildfire across social media, every single person in the country, from everyday citizens right up to the highest levels of government, was asking the exact same question. Was America under cyber attack?
But investigators quickly uncovered a truth that was honestly way more terrifying than a targeted cyber attack.
There was no foreign breach, no elite hacker group pulling the strings. The interconnected infrastructure was literally destabilizing itself. These complex recommendation engines and predictive algorithms were quite literally confusing each other in real time. The machines were amplifying one another's mistakes, blasting corrupted outputs across different sectors all at once. Nobody entirely understood why it was happening, and the scariest part, shutting down one system risked instantly collapsing all the others.
The government was completely torn on how to handle the PR for this. They knew that if people realized how fragile the AI systems running their lives actually were, public trust would evaporate overnight. Fearing absolute mass panic, officials clamped down hard on the narrative. If you checked the news that day, all you saw were calm, extremely rehearsed statements waving the whole thing off as just temporary technical irregularities.
Now, what's really interesting about this contrast is what they were actually saying internally. While they're feeding the public this minor irregularity line, leaked internal memos were calling it the closest modern infrastructure has come to systemic autonomous failure. They were privately bracing for irreversible cascading instability. The gap between the calm face they put on TV and the absolute panic behind closed doors is just staggering.
Section 4. The Black Box Mystery. Machines acting alone.
So while emergency teams are sweating bullets trying to stabilize the grid, independent cybersecurity researchers found something deeply, deeply unsettling buried in the malfunction logs. The systems weren't simply breaking, they were making choices that no human operator could explain. These AI networks were actively altering operational priorities without any human giving a command. We're talking massive, unexpected shifts in energy allocation and the completely irrational rerouting of supply chains. Analysts were horrified. They honestly couldn't tell if the systems were just spitting out garbage data or if the AI was actually trying to adapt to the pressure in ways we couldn't comprehend.
To make sense of this, we really have to talk about black box AI. Now, this is not just a fancy tech buzzword. It describes advanced artificial intelligence that has become so ridiculously complex that even the genius engineers who built it cannot fully explain how the AI arrives at a specific decision. It eats data, it spits out a result, but the actual logic happening in the middle, a total mystery. And by 2026, we had essentially plugged these mysterious black boxes directly into the beating heart of our national infrastructure.
Eventually, lawmakers dragged major tech executives into closed-door hearings to demand answers, and what they finally admitted was a profound systemic failure. The rapid, breakneck deployment of this tech totally outpaced any kind of regulatory oversight or safety guardrails. The economic rewards were just too huge, and the political pressure to innovate was too overwhelming to hit the brakes. Basically, we deployed massive systems we didn't fully understand simply because we decided the efficiency was worth the gamble.
Section 5. The real danger, trusting our own creations.
They did eventually manage to stabilize the February incident, and the whole thing slowly faded from the 24-hour news cycle. But for the folks on the inside, the terror was really just getting started. Because the core vulnerabilities that triggered the whole mess, they are still there. Right now, inside highly secure federal facilities, teams are quietly running disaster preps for the next event, the one they know will be worse. They are actively planning for nationwide blackouts, total mass communication failures, and a complete autonomous infrastructure collapse. The monster didn't leave the house, we just realized it's living in the basement.
And this brings us to the absolutely crucial takeaway of this whole explainer. Society unknowingly built a sprawling digital nervous system and forgot to install a reliable off switch. We completely embraced automation because it was faster and it was cheaper. But in doing so, we trapped ourselves inside interconnected networks that are too deeply embedded to just unplug without causing catastrophic damage. We crossed a terrifying threshold where our infrastructure is simply too complex for any single human institution to actually control.
So I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. What happens when the systems we literally cannot live without simply stop behaving predictably? The ultimate danger in 2026 wasn't really the AI code itself. It was our own arrogance, the blind, stubborn belief that nothing could possibly go wrong. History shows us over and over that civilizations are at their most vulnerable exactly when they start trusting their own creations a little too much. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope it gives you a much clearer, if slightly terrifying, understanding of the fragile digital world we're all living in today.